1, 2. Test for the audio for the cameraman, for the press. Check 1, 2.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being with us today, and welcome to EPA. My name is Aaron Szabo. I am a senior advisor to Administrator Zeldin, focusing on air issues, and I'll be your MC for today. We're so glad to be joined today by federal and tribal partners, including Senator Kevin Cramer, House Energy and Commerce Chair Brett Guthrie, Representatives Troy Balderson, Carol Miller, Dan Muser, Rob Bresnahan, and Michael Ruley, and President Bunigran of the Navajo Nation. We got an exciting program ahead, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce the 17th Administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency, Lee Zeldin. Let's give a warm round of applause for Administrator Zeldin.
Today is a historic day at the EPA. For the last few months since President Trump was sworn in for this term, we here at the EPA have been taking actions to end the agency's war on so much of our U.S. domestic energy supply. The American public spoke loudly and clearly last November. They wanted to make sure that all agencies were cognizant of their economic concerns, that no matter what agency anybody might be confirmed to lead, that we are finding opportunities to pursue common sense, pragmatic solutions that will help reduce the cost of living, that will help create jobs, that will make it easier to survive in the United States, and to help usher in a golden age, a golden era of American prosperity. At the EPA under President Trump, we have chosen to both protect the environment and grow the economy. There was this false binary choice before we got here. There was a decision that was made. It was done by the Obama administration, it was done by the Biden administration, and especially over the course of the last couple of years, in 2023 and 2024, rules were enacted seeking to suffocate our economy in order to protect the environment, seeking to make all sorts of industries, including coal and more, disappear, regulate them out of existence. The American public is demanding that we lead here in this agency. And whether it is the Environmental Protection Agency, it's the Department of Interior, it's the Department of Energy, it's the Department of Commerce, we all work together as part of President Trump's National Energy Dominance Council to implement his executive orders and to make sure that we are taking action. And here at the EPA, we choose to both protect the environment and grow the economy. We are proposing to repeal Obama and Biden rules that have been criticized as regulating coal, oil, and gas out of existence. From the so-called Clean Power Plan to the 2024 Mercury and Air Toxic Standards, or MATS. Together, if finalized, these actions would result in saving over $1 billion per year, something American families, as I mentioned, are demanding. Both proposed rules, if finalized, would deliver savings to American families on their electricity bills, and it will ensure that they have the electricity that they need. Today, EPA is taking an important step, reclaiming sanity and sound policy, illustrating that we can both protect the environment and grow the economy. We're honored to have here Senator Kramer, House Energy and Commerce, Committee Chairman Brett Guthrie, Representatives Troy Balderson, Carol Miller, Dan Muser, Rob Bresnahan, Michael Rulli, and Navajo Nation President Boo Nygren. The Clean Power Plan and carbon pollution standard has saddled our critical power sector with expensive, unreasonable, and burdensome regulations. Under the Clean Air Act, the Obama and Biden-Harris administrations created a Clean Power Plan in the name of climate change. They tried this twice, even after a loss at the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court struck down the 2015 Clean Power Plan standards for existing power plants in West Virginia versus EPA, holding that the major questions doctrine barred EPA from misusing the Clean Air Act to manipulate Americans' energy choices and shift the balance of the nation's electrical fuel mix. In this action, EPA is proposing to find that the 2015 standards for new power plants and 2024 rule that updated standards for new plants and revived standards for existing power plants also misuse the Clean Air Act. Specifically, EPA is proposing to repeal the 2015 emission standards for new fossil fuel powered plants issued under the Obama-Biden administration and the 2024 rule for new and existing fossil fuel powered plants issued under the Biden-Harris administration. With regards to MATS, President Obama, you may all remember, he famously talked about on the campaign trail in 2028, he promised to kill the coal industry. President Biden continued this legacy with his 2024 amendments to MATS. Obama and Biden's MATS rules have been criticized for flattening our power sector. The rule affected 600 power plants, more than 1,000 coal-fired units, and a few hundred oil-fired units. Obama said it would cost the power sector $9.6 billion. That was his number. It didn't. Utilities spent $18 billion to retrofit their power plants and comply with the regulations over more than 10 years. We have members of the media here, and maybe you were writing stories back then, and you would say, well, it's only going to cost $9.6 billion. Then when asked you why, you'd say, well, President Obama told me so. Well, Well, just because they might be throwing out their numbers to justify their rules doesn't make their numbers accurate. Case in point, just look at how much it actually costs to implement President Obama's rules. Once again, the Supreme Court stepped in and slammed Obama's EPA for ignoring costs. Beginning in 2008, because of all these expensive, unduly rules, a lot of utility-scale power plants retired. That was the intention of the government. Nearly all of them were fueled by coal, gas, and oil. Coal plants accounted for nearly half of those retired. The 2024 amendments drew a lawsuit from 23 states. It caused significant regulatory uncertainty, especially for coal plants in Florida, Illinois, Kentucky, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, North Carolina, North Dakota, Pennsylvania, Texas, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Now, much of what you read in the press might end up being misleading about this announcement. Here are the facts. This action is only a proposal. The public will have the opportunity to comment and provide input on the proposed rule. If finalized, no power plant will be allowed to emit more than they do today, or as much as they did 1 or 2 years ago. Let me repeat that. If finalized, no power plant will be allowed to emit more than they do today, or as much as they did 1 or 2 years ago. I apologize if I just killed a few of the pre-written headlines. We have already seen share reductions in harmful air toxic pollutants from power plants before the 2024 amendments. Specifically, 2021 mercury emissions from coal-fired EGUs were 90% lower than pre-MATS levels. Since 2010, acid gas HAP emissions have almost been eliminated. Emissions of the non-mercury metals, including nickel, arsenic, and lead, have been reduced by more than 81%. We're not eliminating MATS. We're proposing to revise it to remove the gratuitous requirements added by the Biden administration in 2024. We will continue to unapologetically course correct and implement sound policy. Rest assured, President Trump is the biggest supporter of clean, beautiful coal. We will use coal for power generation, to mine for critical minerals, and to export to our allies. Today, we are taking an important step towards putting America back on track. EPA is helping pave the way for American energy dominance because energy development underpins economic development, which in turn strengthens national security. And most importantly, the American public voted for it last November. Both Obama and Biden erected every barrier, proposed every regulation, even some unlawful ones, doing whatever they could think of to thwart American energy, increasing the cost of living for American families, and in turn, threatening our national security. As a result, we suffered as a country. American energy suffered, and Americans who rely on affordable, reliable power suffered. The good news is that those days are over. Today, here at the Trump EPA, we are powering the great American comeback. Power demand is skyrocketing right now. We need all the American energy we can produce and deliver. We need to produce, but also build infrastructure to deliver energy to all communities. Data centers that support AI alone will eat up nearly 10% of U.S. electricity supply within 10 years. Right now, it's about 3 to 4% of total U.S. electricity demand. We can produce American energy resources, create good-paying jobs, and, yes, protect the environment. Today's big announcement is a huge step forward in energy dominance. Relatedly, the President's One Big Beautiful Bill is essential if we want to unleash American energy, repower the economy, bring down prices, and make America the AI capital of the world. The bill will provide the largest tax cut to the working and middle class in history. And it builds on the work we're already doing at EPA by eliminating billions in green new scam slush funds established under the Biden-Harris administration that advanced the climate change cult and lined the pockets of politically connected groups at the expense of American families. I'm very grateful that all of you are here to join us for this very important announcement. And if you're here, I'm sure you understand just how big of a deal it is to reverse course. It's hard to find a better champion inside of Congress than our next speaker and a former colleague from the House who is doing great things now in the United States Senate, great American Kevin Cramer.
Thank you, Administrator Zeldin. I'm going to start the way my good friend and former Governor Doug Burgum often starts his speeches, because I sat there with this great sense of gratitude. And Doug always says, I want to begin by expressing gratitude. Gratitude, Mr. Administrator, for this event and for including me as a part of it, but most of all, to you and President Trump and the entire Trump administration for having a cohesive, strategic plan and executing it in the number of days that you have to restore America's energy dominance, which it restores a lot. It restores the economy and the economic opportunity that comes from being dominant in energy. I want to say on behalf of the people of North Dakota especially, thank you for the proposal on the MATS rule. The MATS rule, you know, it's things you thought you'd never hear Kevin Cramer say. The 2012 Obama rule was pretty fair. In fact, the Democrats thought it was outstanding. In fact, President Trump didn't even try to change it. It was fine. It was good. And in North Dakota, where we mine lignite and produce electricity for about 8 or 9 states, very reliable, long-term, steady electricity and low cost, we had a lignite subcategory. Really important in that 2012 rule. That doesn't exist in the 2024 rule. And so it was clear and simple, a war on fossil energy. And I appreciate your reference to the Supreme Court's decisions, and they've done it more than once, whether it's Chevron doctrine, whether it was major questions in West Virginia versus EPA, probably the most critical one here, trying to restore the levers of power back to where they belong, to the states, and trying to recognize the overreach, the illegal overreach. The administration and the Biden administration just kept coming back to the same well, trying to find new, cute ways to shift fuel resources and just kept getting pushed back. Now, prior to being on the Energy and Commerce Committee in the House and being on the Environment and Public Works Committee in the Senate, I was an energy and environmental regulator for 10 years. So I had rate control as well as environmental stewardship. And I've always resented that somebody in this building thought they cared more about the air and the land and the water and the economy of North Dakota than I did, or that my family did. And so I'm just so grateful that you understand that better than anybody. I think what you're attacking here is so, so important. And I just want to say to all of the North Dakotans listening and frankly all of the stakeholders listening, this comment period is real. It's important. Take full advantage of it. Comment, comment, comment. Weigh in on throughout the process so that your record is clear and is on the record. Because what's been done up to this point is literally a unilateral disarmament of the American economy. We don't need to disarm because the world is relying on us. Just imagine the greenhouse gas emission contribution of the coal and gas power sector to global emissions is 0.68%. The contribution of coal, 0.4%. So we want to bankrupt an entire industry that would then add to the costs of everything else we want to produce and grow and develop in this country, put us at a global disadvantage economically for 0.4% while we just give license to the polluters of the world. So thank you for recognizing American greatness, for giving this opportunity to both highlight it and to change the rules in a more common sense and reasonable way. And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce my very good friend, my former colleague on the E&C committee in the House, and a great, great patriot, Chairman Brett Guthrie of the House E&C.
Thanks, Administrator, for having me here today, and thanks for being here. Sorry, I was a couple of minutes. I was on the House floor, and Sometimes business doesn't stop to your schedule that you want it to, so I apologize, but glad to be here. And that's a great way to say it, to start with gratitude. Gratitude to Minister Zeldin for what you're doing, what the Trump administration is doing to address the Clean Power Plan 2.0 and the MATS rule. Because what we're talking about today, we're part of a radical green regulatory agenda that jeopardized grid reliability and drove up prices for American families and businesses. Attempting to push baseload power sources, including coal, oil, and natural gas offline, puts our national security at risk and threatens our economy. And by reversing these regulations, Mr. Administrator, you and President Trump are working once again, as we talk about, to unleash American energy, to secure our grid, and help provide the power we will need to beat China in the race to AI, a race we cannot lose. Today we held our first hearing on the Reforming the Clean Air Act for this Congress and to limit outdated and overburdensome regulations. And today's hearing was the first in a series that will address steps that Congress can take to enact common sense reforms that support innovation while keeping our air clean. And over the past 40 years, we've made incredible progress toward protecting the air we breathe and decreasing pollution and creating healthier communities. But these regulations promulgated during the Biden-Harris administration threaten American businesses and workers without making meaningful difference towards addressing pollution. So the regulatory overreach is being addressed today. I thank you for doing it. It is time to restore American manufacturing, and we need to be able to build and make things in this economy and beat China to the path to AI, and that takes energy to do that. So I thank you for doing it. Thank you for taking the actions. And we have great members of the Energy and Commerce Committee who are here. They're working hard for the American people. And none other, we have a lot of great ones, but none other working hard than my good friend from Ohio, Mr. Troy Balderson.
Thank you, Chairman. You never know, so you get clickets, just in case, and it's a little dark. So, Administrator, gratitude will be the word of the day. Thank you very much for doing this, but also for including us in this major economic announcement that you're doing today. I want everyone to know that we're bringing back common sense to the EPA. These announcements send a clear message that this administration is focused on ensuring our nation that it has a reliable baseload energy power to bring America back again. For many manufacturers in my congressional district that I represent, a lot of those AI facilities and private sector innovators, access to reliable, affordable energy is absolutely essential for them to invest in America for the long haul. And most importantly, the Ohio families that I represent, they expect that when they flip the switch, the lights will come on every time. Under the Biden-led EPA, we witnessed an unprecedented assault on our electric grid and our ability to meet the surging power demand. For grid operators, local utilities, and power co-ops, this rule was nothing short of a disaster. The Clean Power Plan 2.0 mandated unproven technology and imposes unachievable emission limits on an unworkable time frame, violating both the Clean Air Act and Supreme Court rulings. The Clean Power Plan 2.0 and the March rule would have forced our most efficient and reliable power generation into early retirement, just as Ohio and the rest of the nation are seeing a historic rise in demand due to the AI revolution, new data centers, and a manufacturing resurgence. You don't have to just take our word for it. The Clean Power Plan 2.0 was so flawed that 4 of the nation's largest grid operators jointly filed a brief opposing this Biden-era rule in the D.C. Circuit Court. These Biden-era rules threaten grid reliability, undermine America's energy and national security, and would have raised costs for our consumers and constituents. I'm grateful for Administrator Zeldin and the Trump administration on delivering on their promises, restoring American energy dominance and putting America's families first. Thank you, Mr. Zeldin, and with my great honor to introduce my dear friend from the East, the great state of West Virginia, Carol Meller.
Thank you, everyone. I'm very grateful to be here. I'm very grateful to what's happening, but I'm really excited. I'm thrilled to be joining everyone here today to repeal the Biden-era Clean Power Plan 2.0 and the mercury and air toxic standards. I'm a West Virginian. I have seen firsthand what bad policy can do. It does bad things. I have a county, McDowell County, that in the 1950s had about 100,000 people in it. They even sold Chanel No. 5 in downtown stores. Today, they are under 20,000 people. Their Walmart closed. The sign's hanging on its side. The parking lot's full of grass. It does bad things. People who wanted to work had to make decisions of what they were going to do, how were they going to take care of their families, how were they going to feed them. So they up and left. Went to Columbus, went to Nashville, went to Charlotte, anywhere they could get a job. Anytime you hear something closing somewhere, Biden in his first week closing the pipeline, 300 West Virginians came home because we do want to work. Beside these policies hurting my home state's population and economy, they actually are very nonsensical to our grid. You know, coal is a reliable baseload energy. And at a time when electricity and demand is rising, all of these things that are happening along Ohio, and I mean, it's incredible. They need us, and we, of course, need them. At a time when the demand is rising, you shouldn't be punishing coal operators. You should be welcoming them. The Biden administration set out to finish the job by proposing Clean Power Plant 2, but these rules imposed enormous costs, and with little environmental benefit on existing coal-fired power plants, the newly constricted gas-fired power plants, both, if enacted, they would have shut down the majority of our coal producers in 2032. I proposed legislation in last Congress to repeal these rules, and the Biden administration obviously would never have admitted to its wrongdoing and let the legislation pass, but the will of the American people eliminated the Biden administration. Thanks to President Trump's leadership to repeal these burdensome rules, we can begin to focus our energy policy that values domestic energy productions, their producers, it supports grids, its reliability, and it helps keep our prices affordable for our American families. I am so grateful to have the President and an EPA that understands that we must unleash American coal, not bury it under red tape. President Trump knows that energy security is national security and that bolstering, not hindering our domestic energy production is key to keeping America strong. As a co-chair of the Congressional Coal Caucus, I will continue to fight for the people of West Virginia and the United States of America. Thank you, Administrator Zeldin, for all your hard work and for having me here today. And now my good friend Dan Muser from Pennsylvania can take over. God bless you all.
Well, I thank my co-chair of the Coal Caucus, Carol Miller, very, very much. I also thank Administrator Zeldin for his leadership and to the Trump administration and to the entire team at the EPA. You know, the more American energy responsibly produced will create a cleaner world. It's a fact. The actions taken today by Administrator Zeldin and President Trump reflect a serious, responsible approach to deregulation, one that supports American energy, strengthens our economy, and keeps our environment as clean as possible. I venture to say we are all. Administrator Zeldin, I think he's certainly a conservationist, as I am, but an environmentalist as well. And as he said, there should not be a binary difference between energy production and clean environment. So removing these policies that truly make it harder to produce, and by the way, have never been in effect, to produce domestic energy simply only drives up costs, creates uncertainty, pushes power plants overseas, and diminishes, if not ruins, any future investment. So I do represent a district with energy producers, coal, natural gas, and others. I like to say as well as all of the above, but also all of the below. And the resources that are derived support jobs, to say the least, thousands and thousands, over 400,000 indirect and direct jobs from natural gas alone in Pennsylvania, and many more from coal. But it fuels, of course, fuels our economy. So repealing these Biden-era rules will help so many businesses continue to operate, expand, invest, and allow the United States to become truly energy dominant again. We know how to produce energy cleanly and efficiently. What we need is a regulatory policy that the Zeldin EPA is delivering that allows us to keep doing just that. And we appreciate it. Administrator Zeldin's 5-pillar plan, powering the great American comeback, focus the EPA on what matters: clean air, reliable energy, business growth, common sense, and pro-America policy. So I just want to thank President Trump, Administrator Zeldin, my good friend, for today's action. And we all look forward to continuing to support the energy producers throughout Pennsylvania and throughout our country. So with that, I now have the pleasure of introducing my good friend and colleague from Northeast Pennsylvania, Rob Bresnahan.
Thank you, Congressman Muser. We are congressional neighbors, and always nice to have a friend in Washington, D.C. But also thank you to the administrator. The last time we got to spend some time was back in March when he visited our district, and we talked about the energy opportunities and the challenges in northeastern Pennsylvania for the development of energy dominance. I applaud your leadership and the President's vision in repealing the Clean Power Plan 2.0. This rule would have been a nail in the coffin for our energy markets. My district is within the PJM interconnection, which took the very unusual step in May of 2024, actually criticizing the Clean Power Plan 2.0. In our district, we are slated to have 9 new data centers come online in just the next few years. And on Monday, we actually announced $20 billion investment from Amazon for 2 new AI data centers, some in Congressman Muser's district. Between data centers, AI, and the growing domestic manufacturing base, the simple fact is we need more electrons on the grid to power all of this. Clean Power Plan 2.0 would have made the construction of new natural gas plants virtually impossible. And natural gas is one of the cleanest fuel sources and one of the quickest to get online. Under this terrible Biden-Harris rule, we wouldn't be able to take advantage of the clean, reliable, and safe fuel sources to power the future. In Wayne County, in our district, we have close to $1 billion of natural gas deposits. Sadly, the 4 governors in the watersheds have banned fracking, and with President Trump and Administrator Zeldin's help, we'll repeal that ban, and it's time to not power only the 21st century, but the 22nd century American comeback, and I commend the Administrator for doing just that. Next, I have the pleasure of introducing my neighbor to the west, Congressman Ruley from the wonderful state of Ohio.
I'd like to start off by thanking President Trump and Administrator Zeldin. We wouldn't be here today, and I can't, from the bottom of my heart, thank you from the Ohio 6. I was in the Ohio Senate for 6 years. I sat on government. I was the chair, and I was also on energy. And I was told by everybody that came in our committees, all of the above. Well, back 6 years ago, all of the above meant solar and wind and hydro, and gas and coal wasn't even a thought. Well, in the Ohio 6, we have enough natural gas to supply the earth for 500 years. That means no more Middle Eastern wars. That means that we could do all the energy for the whole earth right there on the eastern coast of Ohio, in the Ohio 6. And coal is one of these parts of the equation. And coal is very much misunderstood in this country. We celebrate wind and solar and hydro, but that isn't going to support the grid right now. It's a proven fact that several Christmases ago, the grid almost melted down. I toured the coal plant, Cardinal Coal Plant, in the middle of the Ohio 6, and they said they were getting calls to give it everything you have because we're within an hour of melting down. Now, that's a coal plant. Now, we had another coal plant on the Ohio River that was just ripped down within the last 7 months, and it was celebrated by the previous administration as a good thing. When you say all of the above, let's really mean all of the above. And when you want to have an opposition party that's going to celebrate coal plants in Germany, India, China, and Russia, which are building coal plants by the dozens, and they're celebrating, and we're looking to get our energy from there when we can do it right here in Ohio, let's have a new path forward. Let's celebrate coal again. Let's look at it. There's a cleaner way to do coal, and we're looking at it every day. And let's have the epicenter of it right here in Ohio. The whole country is looking for something to protect the grid. We cannot let it go down. And without coal, I fear that that will never be obtained. It is a pleasure to work with Chairman Guthrie and to look at all the paths that make logical sense, and we're going to protect the environment. That's the most important thing. You could do a clean coal and you could protect the environment, but most of all, you could protect people's lives. It's national security, and it's the lives of Americans that need a grid that's going to be reliable. And when you flip on that light switch, that power is going to come on. Now, whether that's through solar or hydro or nuclear or natural gas, but especially coal, because coal is a proven staple of the American grid. I cannot thank the Administrator Zeldin enough and President Trump for taking this path forward, for protecting the future that has yet to come. And with that, I'd like to turn over this microphone to the Navajo President, Boone Nygren.
Yate, I want to say Yate from the Navajo Nation. And it's an honor to be here to really represent the Navajo people as their president. I know for far too long, for decades, the Navajo Nation has been at the energy front for the Southwest powering communities in Los Angeles, Phoenix, Nevada. And at one point in time, the Navajo Nation actually produced 8,000 megawatts on or around the Navajo Nation. And that's gone significantly down under 2,000 megawatts. So I know that today is very instrumental on behalf of all the Navajo miners at the Navajo mine, which is located on the Navajo Nation on the New Mexico side, the Four Corner plant, power plant workers. I just want to say thank you for Administrator Zeldin, and thank you to President Trump for believing in the Navajo people and protecting Navajo jobs, and how do we continue to make sure that we continue to be at the forefront, and how does the Navajo people reestablish and continue to help this country to reestablish energy dominance. I want to say thank you on behalf of the Navajo Nation, because I know that it's a very important part of what we do on a day-to-day basis from the Navajo people, because we've had a very sad story when the Navajo generating station closed a few years ago. It was the most efficient power plant in the country, and sadly we had to tear it down, and we've seen it completely come down, and we lost thousands of Navajo good-paying jobs. And to this day, all those families are still relocated off the nation, and their families haven't come back to the nation. So it's very tough, and we would never want to see that happen again on Navajo. So again, many thanks to President Trump and Administrator Zeldin for continuing to support the Navajo people. And I know that as we continue to move forward, protecting jobs is very important, because within the Navajo Nation, high-paying jobs are very hard to find. And a lot of these jobs, a month ago, I met with all the Navajo miners and the plant workers, and they're very happy and pleased with the administration continuing to do what they can to save Four Corners Power Plant, Navajo Mine, and I think with rescinding policies like the Clean Power Plan 2.0 is really going to help that reestablish its hope, and their kids and their families are going to continue to feel like, you know, the government is listening, that if you work hard, provide for your family, you're going to be able to have a good paying job that you can come home to. So again, I completely support the repeal, because it's going to help our communities, help our nation, our Navajo Transitional Energy Company. For those of you, the Navajo Nation is actually the third largest producer of coal in this country, and we're very proud of it. It continues to provide millions of dollars in revenues to the nation, thousands of jobs, and economically, it's one of those things where we can't do without it. And so again, I cannot thank the administration and President Trump and the administrator for continuing to do that. And so again, I want to close by saying and thank you so much for thinking of the Navajo Nation, and really being a remote, rural tribal nation within Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah, to be able to be considered to be a part of this ceremony today. And again, I want to commend you for all the work that you have done. So on behalf of the people, I want to say thank you so much, and God bless each and every one of you. Hagonet.
Thank you to all of our speakers, all of our attendees who are here. Special shout out to a great team at the Office of Air and Radiation who all work very hard, dedicated to EPA's mission. And at this time, I'd like to invite back up our speakers to join me for the signing of the proposed rule. We would invite up any members of our Office and Air and Radiation team who want to join us for the photo. And then I'll come back to the podium, happy to answer a few questions before we end. And for the members of Congress, if you have to leave, we understand. If you stay and are interested in answering any of the questions alongside me, you're more than welcome and invited. So I'll invite you all up, and we'll do a signing now of the proposed rule. All right. Who's first? You got the mic, man? Okay, go ahead.
Hello, Annie Snyder with Politico. We are looking through the cost-benefit analysis here, and it looks like the rule is estimating public health costs as high as $130 billion under the rule, compared with $21 billion in compliance cost savings. How do you justify a rule with such lopsided cost and benefit?
How do you justify not doing this action? The intent of the Biden administration was to go after baseload power all throughout the entire country, to reduce access to energy, to get rid of jobs, decimating communities, making it harder for Americans to afford to survive. And that's not the unintended consequences of the decisions that were made by the Biden EPA. That was the intended consequences. And it's not something that just was a New Year's resolution, January 1st of 2024. This is something that dates back to President Obama's campaign. This is finishing off of this task of finishing off baseload power in so many different ways in this country. How do you possibly justify not taking this action? And what's most important, what's most compelling? The American public demanded it. We will go through a public comment period. We'll go through a rulemaking process. As far as a decision to be made and what a final rule may look like is something that is a decision to be made in the future. We'll follow the Administrative Procedures Act. We'll work to have a decision that is as durable as possible. And the American public, again, most importantly, the American public has the opportunity to participate. Next question. You guys are jumping on here.
Hi, Ari Nader from Bloomberg. Nice to meet you. I was curious if you could give us an update on your plans to revisit the endangerment finding, which, of course, is the legal finding underpinning this and all the other climate regulations.
I don't have anything to announce today as it relates to any proposed rulemaking that may be to come on that topic, and we will update the public as soon as we do have an announcement. Yes.
Thank you. Sure. Jean Chemnick from E&E News. I'm curious, the power sector is the largest stationary source of greenhouse gases in the U.S. If it isn't significant, if it isn't a significant contributor, as you argue in this rule, what would be?
We're going to go through a process, and we will make a decision as to whether or not it is a significant contributor. That is a decision that we aren't prejudging, that I cannot prejudge at the onset of the proposed rule, but that is a decision that I will have to make at the end of this process, and I look forward to doing so. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Hi, Jacob Garden-Schwartz with Scripps News. Thanks so much for doing this. We've already heard from a number of climate and clean energy groups who have threatened lawsuits in response to this expected action. Can you speak to just the administration's posture regarding legal challenges and how confident you are that this will hold up in court?
We will, with all actions, follow the law, follow our obligations under the law. In this case, the rulemaking process is guided by the Administrative Procedures Act. During rulemaking, we will have technical data that will be provided to the agency that we will use in making a final decision through this process. As far as litigation goes, I understand that as administrator of EPA, on every single decision that I make with regards to anything, whether I say yes or no, someone will probably sue me. It's just comes with the job. And I know what I signed up for, and I know that the American public spoke loudly and clearly. I understand what President Trump campaigned on. I know what he has been outspoken about since being sworn in for this most recent term. I know the stakes. I know that we inherited a big mess and we want to fix it. And one of my proudest days since being confirmed as administrator was on the 100th day of the Trump administration, that morning announcing 100 actions that we took in those first 100 days to protect the environment. And I know that some on the team had a decision to make and putting together a recommendation as to what would make the top 100 because they had such a long list of options to include in that list. And we woke up the next day just as motivated to continue that effort. So we will continue to strike that right balance, understanding that the American public demands it. Any other questions? Before anyone who hasn't asked a question? Okay, on topic? Okay, go ahead.
So I want to follow up on that question about litigation. By repealing the existing rules without offering a replacement, it seems like a bit of a legal risk here. The rulemaking and the subsequent legal fight are likely to take the remainder of the term. And if the courts ultimately rule against you, are you at all concerned that you're leaving it to the next administration to craft a regulation? And how do you kind of weigh that versus the possibility of issuing an ACE-like rule that would be easier for utilities to comply with?
I would say with great enthusiasm and excitement for the future, I know that we are absolutely going down the right path. We are eager for the opportunities that are ahead to be able to fix the massive mess that we inherited. We understand what it means to the American public. We understand how important it is as it relates to the president's agenda. This isn't any surprise. The president campaigned on this, and we're fulfilling promises that were made to the American public that the American public voted for. So if you're asking as far as how I feel, what our emotions are as we look to the future, it's one with enormous enthusiasm and excitement. We are happy to be here for today's announcement. Last question. Is it on topic? Yes. Okay, go ahead. And then
so on the mercury rule, you've made a commitment to ensure clean air for all Americans. How do you square that with removing a rule that would have kept so many tons of toxic emissions out of the atmosphere?
Well, you understand with the 2024 mercury and air toxic standards that they haven't even gone into effect yet. So it's not like the air, it would be a dishonest argument for anyone in America to make, to say that the air is going to get dirtier because of this. It's just not accurate. It also would be inaccurate to say that we are eliminating the mercury and air toxic standards. That's not true. The proposed rule is to eliminate the 2024 mercury and air toxic standards. The mercury and air toxic standards prior to this new rule will remain in effect. Again, all of this is a proposal. We will go through a process and decision will be made at the end of the process. We have two great members of Congress here, and give them the opportunity to weigh in on any of the questions that were asked, anything on their mind as closing thoughts.
Thanks, Administrator. Yeah, I would just say that the toxic levels of the Middle Eastern countries are much higher than those of Midland, Texas. I would say that the toxic levels emitted by Tehran are a lot higher than Towanda, Bradford County, Pennsylvania, where I am from. We can't be choosing the Middle East over Midland. That's foolish, and it runs against science, and it creates frankly a dirtier world. We're in a situation right now where AI was brought up by Representative Bresnahan. We have a huge announcement in Pennsylvania recently with Amazon Web Services, $20 billion investment. If we didn't have the energy available to them, if we would have followed some of the Biden-era rules, and frankly some of our current governor, we would have lost that opportunity. So we need to do it cleaner. We need to do it better. We need to have the energy available for this next huge revolution in industry. And even Eric Schmidt, who wrote a book recently or a couple of years ago called Genesis with Henry Kissinger, when I asked him how much more energy do we need to produce in Pennsylvania and America to be the leaders in AI, he said there's only one answer to that: more. So we need to do it better, and we need to keep America a leader. Thank you.
The only thing that I can add is the word urgency. I haven't heard that word yet today. This is urgent. There is no time. Right now in the city of Columbus, we have Intel and Microsoft, and we're going to run out of natural gas in 5 years. We're desperate to get a pipeline into there. We're desperate to even think about doing a nuclear reactor there. This country is going to run out of energy. The time is right now. I know the administrator says that we're going to look into it. We needed to do this yesterday. I have 2,000 Ohio jobs that are on the line to make sure this coal plants are up and running. We need to make sure all these data mining centers that want to come into Ohio have the energy to do this. I already did. I worked very closely with Bill Siderwitz to build 3 gas-power generated plants, 2 in Lordstown and 1 in Wellsville. It's an extensive amount of time. It's 7 years to build these. I have investors looking to build $30 billion worth of plant for AI, for data mining, behind the grid, behind the meter, in front of the meter. We can't wait. This has to happen today. I'll do everything in my power to help President Trump and Administrator Zeldin to make this happen right now.
Thanks, everybody.